Hi there, Year 5, it's Mrs. Flavell here, and I'm here with your next reading paper, which is called The Black Amulet by J.R. Wallace. And it's quite a good text again. It's one that is a beginning of a text that really makes you think about what's going to happen within the story as it continues. Hope you enjoy it.
So, we're thinking about answering questions and giving as much detail as you can to show that you understand the meaning of the questions. So, and try and have a go at answering as most of them as you can correctly. So, your target's to understand elements of fantasy and supernatural text and to answer questions using the text for support. It was easy enough to spot the vampire at the end of the alleyway. As she peered around the corner of the last building in the street, Ruby spied the creature standing inside a yellow cone of light thrown down by a single street lamp, staring into a shop window. She tiptoed round the corner, keeping close to the wall, and slid into a deep, dark doorway to hide. As she moved closer to the vampire, the old-fashioned revolver Ruby was holding tutted and swore quietly for good measure. To be fair, the gun had been grumbling for the last 10 minutes, making sure Ruby knew exactly how it felt about her hunting such a dangerous creature, urging her to turn back. A speaking gun, let alone one that could curse so well, could have scrambled the brains of most people, as would seeing a vampire in a small market town in the middle of the night. But Ruby, none of it seemed exceptional now. Up until a few months ago, she'd been living a regular life, but she lived it in the Badlands now, a place on the fringes of everyday world that most ordinary people knew nothing about. Not only was magic possible there, but the Badlands was also inhabited by strange and vicious monsters, making it very dangerous. But in spite of all the extraordinary creatures that could be found there, Ruby was by far the strangest living thing of all, because she was the only girl. As far as she knew, the Badlands had only ever been a place where men and their boy apprentices had worked tackling monsters and other nasties to keep ordinary people safe. Ruby always glowed with pride whenever she remembered she was the first girl Badlander, even if it was still a secret for now. "Keep it down, will you?" she hissed at the gun as the gun tutted again before stringing together another collection of rather fruity-sounding words that would have embarrassed anyone who knew what they meant. "Ruby, for the last time, go home," it whispered. "You might be brave, but you're too stubborn for your own good. You're out of your depth with this one." "I know what I'm doing. Tackling a vampire is almost impossible without magic. What you've insisted on hunting it down is beyond me." "Why do you think," hissed Ruby, "all Victor Bryn makes me do is read books? It's like being back at school. We never go hunting like proper Badlanders." "That's because you've got to learn under the circumstances." "You mean because I'm a girl?" Questions are: what being is Ruby hunting down? What word is used to say she saw the being? What does Ruby Why does Ruby tiptoe? What is special about the revolver she is holding? Where does Ruby live now? What is dangerous about living there? What is special about Ruby? How do you think she earned her place there? What does she think is going to give her position away? What does the term out of your depth mean? What doesn't Ruby have to help her? What does Victor Bryn make her do? Remember, have a go at the questions. Some are a little bit more difficult today. You might need to read between the lines a bit more, and then we'll come back with some answers. So, what being is Ruby hunting down? So, Ruby is hunting, get it right, hunting down a, and we've got vampire capital V, that's what it's called. So what word is used to say she saw being? So as she peered round the corner, so she peers round the corner of the last building, so it can't be peered because she's peering around the corner. This doesn't say that she saw the being, so we need to read on. So she peered round the corner of the last building in the street. Ruby spied the creature. So the word we're looking for here is not peered, but the word is spied. Okay? Why does Ruby tiptoe? This is where we've got to get a bit more information now. So she tiptoed around the corner, keeping close to the wall. So she tiptoes so that the vampire doesn't hear her. She needs to stay unseen or unheard. What is special about the revolver she's holding? Okay, the old-fashioned revolver Ruby was holding tutted, then swore quietly for good measure. To be fair, the gun had been grumbling for the last 10 minutes. Well, do you expect a gun to swear or tut or grumble? So obviously this revolver talks. So the revolver is a talking gun. So this is our second element of fantasy or supernatural, which is now being introduced into the story. So where does Ruby live now? So up until a few months ago, she'd been living a regular life, but she lived in the Badlands now. So Ruby now lives in the Badlands. So I put it in inverted commas because actually we don't know what the Badlands are or why these exist. Okay, it's a little bit like our other text the other day where there was an exclusion zone. The exclusion zone kept the character sealed within London and couldn't escape London. What is this Badlands now? What sort of zone is this that she is now moved to living in? Okay, what is dangerous about living there? Okay, Badlands now, a place in the fringes of the everyday world that most ordinary people knew nothing about. Not only was magic possible there, but the Badlands was also inhabited, that means lived in, by strange and vicious monsters. Okay, making it very dangerous. So, there are lots of strange and vicious, okay, monsters that live there. So what is special about Ruby? So Ruby is the only girl. This makes us question why, or it does me. I think, well, why is she the only girl there? What has happened for her to be the only girl there? So how do you think she earned her place there? She may have had to pass a test. Okay, she might show some extraordinary powers or qualities. Okay, so There's lots of ideas. You might have some ideas of your own for this one. Nothing is incorrect about your thoughts when you ask how do you think, as long as it's reasonable within the text, obviously, then obviously your answer will be correct. So what does she think is going to give her position away? Keep it down, Roy. Who's she talking to here? She hissed as the gun tutted again before stringing together another collection of rather fruity sounding words that would have embarrassed anyone who knew what they meant. Okay, so she thinks that that the gun talking and swearing is going to give her away, or going to break her cover. She used detective terms here. What does the term out of your depth mean? So, Ruby, for the last time, go home, it whispered. You might be brave, but you're too stubborn for your own good. You're out of your depth with this one. It means she is taking too bigger risk. Out of your depth literally means out of your depth in the water. If you're out of your depth in your water and you can't swim very well, you're going to drown, you're going to sink. And if she's out of her depth here, she's taking too big a risk because she is not fully able yet to be taking on something like a vampire. What doesn't Ruby have to help her? I know what I'm doing. Tackling a vampire is almost impossible without magic. Why you insisted on hunting it down is beyond me. So, she is without magic. She doesn't have magic to help her. Okay, so what does Victor Brin make her do? Why do you think he's really all Victor Brin makes me do is read books? So, okay, Brin makes her read books, and I've just noticed actually Brin has got two N's on it, and I had only put one N up here. Let's self-correct my spelling mistakes there. Okay, so Victor Brin makes her read books. So obviously she's not getting any practical work done at the moment. She's not learning anything, so she's taken it upon herself to go out on this mission herself. Is Ruby a rebellious person? Back up your answer with evidence from the text. Why do you think Ruby being the first Badlander girl is a secret? What does Ruby think holds her back from going on practical assignments? Why might the black amulet mentioned in the title be important for Ruby? Can you predict what might happen next? Pause it, have a think about these extra questions, and then we'll get back with some answers. So is Ruby a rebellious person? That means, does she rebel against what she's meant to be doing? And we back up your answers with the text. So, for the last time, go home, it whispered. You might be brave, but you're too stubborn. So, basically, being stubborn often gives people a rebellious streak. So, obviously, if you've mentioned that she is stubborn, that will help. Okay, so also the fact that she is rebellious is the fact that Victor Brin, we don't know who Victor Brin is, but I imagine he is some teacher or master of hers. All he makes me do is read books. Okay, basically she thinks she's like being back at school, whereas actually she doesn't want to just read books. She wants to be hunting like a proper badlander. So this is why she's gone out on this mission. So that makes her a rebellious person. And why do you think Ruby being the first badlander girl is a secret? Okay, well, this could be many reasons. It could be she's actually posed herself as a boy to get into it. Sometimes girls who wanted to go and work on ships, they would cut their hair all off and dress themselves up as a boy to go on the ships. Or sometimes girls would actually dress themselves up as boys to go and live on the streets when in Victorian times as street boys, because it got them a better way in life than being treated as girls. Girls were seen as inferior. So this is very possibly why it's a secret. If badlanders actually start saying that there are girls amongst them, they might think it's either bad luck or that it's a weakness of their society. So what does Ruby think holds her back from going on practical assignments? Well, it's this issue, the fact that she says she's a girl. They think that often in the past or in times it's been seen as female or a girl is seen as a weakness. Okay, they're not seen as the stronger of the two sexes. That is why she sees this as being held as holding her back. So the Black Amulet, which is the title of the text, why is this? Could this be important for Ruby? Well, she might have to find it or use it to gain magical powers. Okay, this might help support her in what her assignments might be. So this is a possibility. This is what I thought immediately. You may have other ideas. That is possible as well. That is fine. So, can you predict what might happen next? Well, she might be able to go out and she might be able to get the vampire. She might slay the vampire. Perhaps she has a special silver bullet in the revolver, because vampires can only be killed with silver bullets. Or perhaps the vampire gets away, perhaps the vampire spots her, and if bitten by a vampire, then you will turn into a vampire immediately as well and live forever. So lots of different reasons or lots of different outcomes could happen from this story. She could befriend the vampire, we never know. Okay, there's lots of outcomes. You might even want to think about having a go at continuing writing this story. It's always a good one to go at, especially when you're left with an ending like this. What happens next? Well, you could write what happens next. Hope you've enjoyed it, something a little bit different again, and hopefully we'll get back with a new text before long on your online learning. Remember, give yourself a little self-assessment, see how you did. Smiley face, sort of okay face, bit of a grumpy face, on how many questions you were able to answer and what you were able to think about the text. Hope you've enjoyed doing it. Take care, kids. Bye.